The highway stretched endlessly beneath the pale glow of Jason Bell's truck headlights. Route 47 was quiet that night, too quiet. The radio crackled with static, and the world outside his window looked like it had been swallowed by darkness. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and the forest on both sides of the road swayed in slow, uneasy movements. Jason rubbed his tired eyes and took a sip of warm coffee from a paper cup. He'd been driving since morning, hauling a trailer full of steel parts to Chicago. His body was begging for rest, but there was nowhere to stop. The GPS showed miles of empty highway before the next gas station. He sighed and turned up the music, some old country song about broken hearts and lost towns. Then through the rain-speckled windshield, he saw something. A man was walking along the side of the road. Jason slowed down instinctively. The figure was tall and thin, dressed in a long black coat that fluttered slightly in the wind. A duffel bag hung over one shoulder. The man's steps were slow, steady, too steady. Even from a distance, something about him felt off. "Who the hell's out here at midnight?" Jason muttered. As his truck rolled closer, the headlights washed over the man and Jason's stomach dropped. The stranger's head was tilted forward slightly, but his face didn't look right. There were no eyes. No shadows where eyes should be. Just smooth, pale skin stretching across his face like porcelain. Jason gasped and blinked. When he opened his eyes again, the man was gone. The empty road stretched ahead. No sign of anyone, no figure, no bag, nothing. Jason gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You're just tired," he whispered to himself. Too much caffeine, too many hours on the road. But then he heard it. Tap, tap, tap. The sound came from the passenger side window. Slow, rhythmic, like someone tapping a finger against the glass. Jason froze. The highway was empty, and the only light came from his truck's dashboard. The tapping grew louder and faster. He forced himself to look. There he was. The man from the road stood right outside the window. His head tilted toward Jason, his face still eyeless. The skin around where his mouth should have been moved slightly, as if he were trying to speak. But there was no sound. Jason's heart pounded. He slammed his foot on the gas pedal. The truck roared forward, tires spinning on the wet pavement. The tapping stopped, replaced by the low hum of the engine and the wind screaming past the mirrors. He checked his side mirror and nearly swerved off the road. The man was walking behind the truck, still keeping up somehow, his long coat dragging along the asphalt. His movements were smooth, unnatural, like he was gliding instead of running. Jason blinked again and the figure vanished from the mirror. For a moment there was silence. Then a faint whisper filled the cab. "Take me home." Jason's breath caught. The voice sounded distant, hollow, like it came through an old radio. He turned off the stereo, but the whisper didn't stop. "Take me home." "Who's there?" Jason shouted. No answer. The voice faded, and Jason kept driving until he saw a small sign glowing in the distance. Miller's Rest Stop, 2 miles ahead. Relief washed over him. He pulled in minutes later, heart still racing, headlights cutting across the cracked parking lot. The place was old, half broken, with one flickering light above a row of vending machines. Jason parked near the entrance, shut off the engine, and exhaled. The silence felt heavy, pressing against the cab. He turned to the passenger seat. A wet footprint glistened on the mat. Just one. Jason's breath hitched. He reached for the flashlight on his dashboard and shined it around the truck. The doors were locked. The windows closed. Still, the footprint was fresh, trailing faintly toward the sleeper area in the back. He slowly turned. Nothing. He told himself he was imagining things, that the mind played tricks after long hours on the road. But when he looked at the passenger window again, his blood ran cold. 3 fingerprints marked the glass. Long, smudged, and wet, as if someone had pressed their hand there from inside the truck. Jason stayed awake till sunrise. In the morning, the rest stop attendant, an old man with a cigarette dangling from his lips, leaned against Jason's truck and asked, "You all right, son? You look like you seen a ghost." Jason gave a nervous laugh. "Maybe I did." The man nodded slowly. "You ain't the first. They say he's out there still walking this highway. Died in a hit-and-run 30 years ago. Folks call him the Silent Drifter. He don't talk, don't stop. Just wants someone to take him home." Jason forced a smile, though his hands were still shaking. "Sounds like a local legend." The attendant grinned faintly. Legend or not, truckers who see him usually don't drive this road again. Jason didn't reply. He got back in his truck, ready to forget it ever happened. But when he checked his dashcam footage later that day, his heart nearly stopped. At 12:17 a.m., the camera showed his truck slowing down near the hitchhiker. The man turned, eyeless face and all, then walked straight toward the truck. The next frame showed the passenger seat door closed and the man sitting inside. The next night, the rain came harder, the kind that blurred the world into gray streaks and made every mile feel longer. Route 47 was nearly deserted, except for a single gas station sitting at the edge of nowhere. Its neon sign buzzed weakly in the storm. Miller's Gas and Deli opened 24 hours. Inside, Earl Miller wiped the counter with a rag that smelled faintly of diesel. He'd owned the place for 30 years. It wasn't much, but it kept him company through long nights. A small radio hummed in the background, playing some old rock song. He looked up at the clock. 2:37 a.m. The rain hit the windows like 1,000 fingers. Earl poured himself another cup of coffee and stared outside. Empty highway. No cars, no headlights, just darkness. Then, through the curtain of rain, he saw a shape. A man was walking slowly up the road toward the gas station. Earl squinted. The man's long black coat dragged in the puddles. A duffel bag hung from his shoulder. He didn't seem bothered by the weather, didn't even flinch as thunder rumbled overhead. Poor soul, Earl murmured. Ain't no place to walk this time of night. He opened the door, the bell jingling softly. You all right there, buddy? Need to dry off? The man stopped 10 feet away. His head tilted upward, and Earl's heart gave a painful thump. The stranger's face was smooth and pale like wax. No eyes, no mouth, just skin. Earl froze, words dying in his throat. The man didn't move, didn't breathe. The rain slid down his face, but he didn't blink, couldn't blink. Earl took a step back and slammed the door shut. Nope, not tonight. He locked it, grabbed the shotgun from beneath the counter, and peeked out again. The road was empty. The man was gone. Earl's fingers trembled on the gun barrel. I need sleep. That's what I need, he whispered. He turned back toward the counter. A trail of wet footprints led across the linoleum. They started near the door and ended right behind the counter. Who's there? Earl barked. His voice shook, no answer. He stepped back slowly. The lights flickered. The radio switched from music to static. Somewhere behind him, the cooler door creaked open by itself. Earl spun around. Show yourself. The static on the radio twisted into a faint whisper. Take me home. The voice was distant, muffled like it came from miles away, yet somehow it filled the small station. Earl dropped the shotgun and ran toward the office. The phone was dead. Even the emergency light above the door was flickering, sputtering in the dark. He grabbed his car keys, ready to leave, when lightning flashed outside Marby and the man was standing right next to the gas pump, still, silent, watching. Earl's chest tightened. God help me, he whispered. He sprinted out the back door toward his truck. Rain soaked him instantly, but he didn't care. He jumped in, started the engine, and floored it onto the highway. The gas station faded in his rear-view mirror. A mile down the road, his headlights flickered, and the man appeared in the middle of the lane. Earl swerved hard. The truck spun, tires screeching, and crashed into the guardrail. The engine died. His heartbeat thundered louder than the storm. He looked around, panting. No one. The road was empty again. Then came a knock on the driver's side window. Slow, gentle. Earl turned, eyes wide. The man stood outside, this time closer. The rain didn't touch him. His coat didn't even flutter in the wind. He pressed one pale hand against the glass, leaving a long, wet smear. His head tilted slightly. Earl's breath fogged the window. What do you want? The whisper returned, louder now, as if coming from inside the truck. Take me home. Where? Earl shouted. Where is home? No reply. Instead, the man's hand slid down the window, and he began to walk away into the darkness, his form fading until the rain swallowed him whole. Earl didn't dare move until dawn. When daylight came, a state trooper found his truck still parked on the shoulder. Earl was alive but shaking, eyes wide, staring at the horizon. I saw him, he kept saying, the silent drifter. He just wanted a ride home, the officer frowned. You mean that old ghost story? People been telling that one for years. Earl's hands were still trembling. It ain't no story, son. He was real. I saw him clear as day. The trooper smiled politely. Sure you did, sir. But when he leaned into the truck to turn off the ignition, he stopped cold. 3 wet fingerprints marked the inside of the driver's window, and on the seat beside Earl, lying neatly folded, was a weathered duffel bag, old military style, with faded letters printed on the side, T. Drake, U.S. Army. The trooper stepped back, unsettled. Who's T. Drake? Earl stared at the bag, voice barely above a whisper. The name on the tombstone 2 miles down Route 47. The wind howled through the trees, carrying a faint sound like soft footsteps moving down the road again. And by the time the trooper looked back, Earl's eyes had gone glassy, fixed on the empty highway, because out there through the morning mist, the figure in the black coat was walking once more, toward another traveler, still silent, still searching, still drifting. The rain had stopped by the time Anna Blake pulled her silver sedan into the Sleepy Pines Motel. It was one of those forgotten places along the highway, flickering neon sign, 10 rooms, and a soda machine that hadn't worked since the 90s. She had been driving for hours, escaping something she didn't want to name. An argument, a memory, maybe herself. The motel clerk, a tired old woman with gray hair and heavy glasses, handed her a key with a half smile. Room 6, she said. Try to stay inside tonight. Weather's been strange lately. Anna nodded, too exhausted to care. She parked her car near the edge of the lot, close to the woods, and grabbed her overnight bag. That's when she noticed it. A duffel bag sitting near the dumpster. It was dark green, old and soaked from the rain. The tag read, T. Drake, U.S. Army. She looked around. The parking lot was empty except for her car and a beat-up pickup parked near the office. Maybe someone left it behind. Maybe it belonged to a veteran. Out of habit and guilt, she carried it to her room. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cleaning spray and damp carpet. She dropped her purse on the nightstand, hung her jacket, and placed the duffel bag on the table. The room was small. 1 bed, 1 chair, a TV that buzzed with static even when turned off. Curiosity won. She unzipped the bag. Inside were a few items. A torn photograph of a young man in uniform standing beside a woman and a small boy. A rusted dog tag. A faded note that read, Don't leave me on the road. Anna frowned. Weird. She placed the photo beside the bed, feeling a strange heaviness in her chest. The man's face, when the soldiers, looked kind, but there was something haunting about his eyes. She couldn't explain it. By 11 p.m., she was lying in bed scrolling her phone. Outside, the trees whispered in the wind. The road beyond the parking lot was empty, only distant thunder rolling far away. Then came the knock, soft, slow, 3 times. She froze. No one was supposed to be outside. She hadn't seen another guest check in. Hello? She called out silence. She walked to the door, heart pounding. The peephole showed nothing, only the dim glow of the parking lot light. She exhaled and turned away. Another knock. This time from the window. Anna spun around. A shadow passed by the curtain, tall, thin, moving with unnatural slowness. She stepped closer, hesitated, then pulled the curtain aside. No one. Just the reflection of her face in the glass. But on the outside, 3 fingerprints streaked across the window. Long, wet. Anna stumbled back, knocking over the lamp. The room plunged into darkness except for the flicker of the TV, which suddenly turned on by itself. The static buzzed loud, filling the silence. Then so faintly a voice emerged through the static. Take me home. Her mouth went dry. Who are you? The voice repeated, distant but desperate. Take me home. She looked toward the table. The duffel bag was open again, though she had zipped it shut. The photograph now lay on the floor, face down. When she picked it up, her breath caught. The soldier's face was gone, completely faded out, leaving only the woman and the child in the picture. Her phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. The caller ID simply said Highway 47. Anna hesitated, then answered. Hello? Static. Then a whisper. Thank you for finding it. She dropped the phone, trembling. The lights flickered violently. The room grew cold, and from the corner of her eye she saw movement, a shadow forming near the doorway. It was the drifter. He stood half in the dark, half in the flickering light. The same black coat, the same smooth eyeless face. But this time he was closer, and she could feel something like sorrow radiating from him. "Take me home," he whispered again, his voice clearer now, more human. Anna backed away until her legs hit the bed. I don't know where that is." The drifter tilted his head as if listening. His coat dripped rain onto the floor, forming dark puddles that stretched toward her feet. Then, he turned slowly toward the window and pointed one pale finger at the woods outside. Before Anna could move, the room lights exploded, plunging everything into darkness. The sound of footsteps filled the air, slow, dragging steps moving away, toward the forest. When she finally found the courage to open the door, the rain had started again. The footprints led straight from her door into the tree and disappeared halfway down the muddy path. In the morning, the motel clerk knocked on her door. "You okay, honey? You screamed last night." Anna nodded weakly. "Yeah, just a bad dream." The clerk frowned. "You sure about that?" "The room next to yours, number 7, someone left this note under the door." She handed Anna a crumpled paper. It was damp, the handwriting shaky. "If you hear him, don't answer. He follows the one who carries his bag." Anna looked toward the table. The duffel bag was gone. So was the photograph. Only the faint smell of rain and something old, something forgotten, lingered in the room. Outside, a traveler was checking into the motel. His pickup truck was splattered with mud. As he carried his luggage inside, something heavy and green lay in the truck bed. A duffel bag, marked T. Drake, U.S. Army, and somewhere down Route 47, the silent drifter walked again, head bowed, coat dragging, whispering to no one, still searching for home, still lost on the road. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled of wet earth and gasoline. Sheriff Tom Granger parked his cruiser beside the Sleepy Pines Motel and stepped out, boots crunching on the gravel. The motel looked half dead, one flickering sign, empty rooms, and the faint hum of insects rising from the trees. He tipped his hat at the clerk behind the front desk. "Morning, ma'am. Got your call about a disturbance last night?" The old woman nodded nervously. "Yes, Sheriff. Room 6. Young lady checked out before sunrise. Said she heard knocking and voices. When I went in after she left, there was water all over the floor. And mud, like someone walked through," Tom sighed. "Could be kids messing around again. This stretch of road attracts all kinds of nonsense." But as he walked toward room 6, he couldn't shake the unease that crept up his spine. The motel sat right off Route 47. The same road people in town whispered about. The same road tied to old ghost stories and missing drivers. The door to room 6 hung slightly open. Inside, the air was cold and damp, the smell of mildew stronger than before. Tom crouched, touching the floor. Mud, and something else. Salt. A thin white line across the threshold, like someone had tried to keep something out. He pulled a glove from his pocket and lifted a small object from the nightstand. A dog tag. The name was worn but readable. T. Drake in U.S. Army. Tom's brow furrowed. He'd heard that name before. Years ago, when he was still a rookie deputy, he bagged the tag and called dispatch. "Cindy, run a background check on a Thomas Drake, U.S. Army vet. Possibly deceased, connection to Route 47. Send me whatever you find." "Copy that, Sheriff." Might take a few minutes. Tom stepped back outside. The wind rustled through the pines, carrying a faint sound, like soft footsteps moving down the shoulder of the highway. He looked both ways. The road was empty. A cold shiver crawled up his neck. An hour later, Tom sat in the diner across from his old friend, Deputy Hank Riley, sipping coffee that tasted like burnt tar. "You're telling me this ghost story again?" Hank said, smirking. "The silent drifter? Come on, Tom, you've been watching too much late-night TV." Tom dropped the evidence bag on the table. "That dog tag's real. Found it in the same motel where a woman claimed she saw a man walking outside her window. Eyeless, silent." "You think that's coincidence?" Hank chuckled. "There's always a story out here. Remember the vanishing hitchhiker? Some old farmer started that one." Tom leaned forward. "No, this goes back decades. When I was a kid, my dad told me about a soldier, Thomas Drake, came home from overseas in '87. Never made it past Route 47. Car broke down, he started walking. They found the wreck, but not his body, just tire marks and blood. Hank's grin faded. You saying he's still out there? I'm saying people keep seeing him. Truckers, locals, same description every time. Long coat, eyeless face, duffel bag on his shoulder. Always walking the same road. The diner's door creaked open. A state trooper walked in holding a folder. Sheriff Granger? Got your report. Tom thanked him and flipped it open. Inside was a faded photo. Thomas Drake, age 29, Army mechanic. Declared missing on July 12, 1987. His last known address was a farmhouse 20 miles south of the highway. That night, Tom drove there. The farmhouse stood half-collapsed, swallowed by vines and silence. The windows were shattered, and the mailbox still read, Drake family. Tom pushed open the creaking door. Dust floated through the light like snow. Inside, time had stopped. Dishes still on the table, a child's toy car rusting on the floor. He moved room to room until he reached the back hallway. A photograph hung crooked on the wall, a man in uniform with a woman and small boy. Tom recognized it immediately. The same photo that had appeared in the motel room story the clerk mentioned. Lightning flashed outside. Something moved in the kitchen. Tom's hand went to his gun. Sheriff's office. Show yourself, no answer. Only the sound of slow footsteps across the old wooden floor. He followed the noise and then froze. In the doorway stood a man in a black coat, soaked as if he'd just walked through a storm. His skin was pale, stretched smooth over his face where eyes and mouth should have been. Tom took a step back, gun shaking. Thomas Drake? The figure tilted its head. A soft whisper filled the air, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. Take me home. You are home, Tom said quietly. What are you looking for? The drifter turned toward the kitchen table. His pale hand reached out, brushing the photograph. For a moment his form shimmered, flickered, and Tom saw him clearly. A young soldier, exhausted, clutching a photo of his family, calling for a ride on a rainy night. Then headlights flashed through the window. A memory. The screech of tires, a crash, a scream. The scene faded, leaving only the silent figure standing there once more. Tom lowered his weapon. You never made it back, did you? The drifter slowly turned toward the door and began to walk, out of the house, down the dirt road toward Route 47. Tom followed, keeping his distance. The figure stopped at the edge of the highway where an old, rusted mile marker leaned into the ditch. There, half buried in the soil, Tom saw a broken cross and a nameplate nearly covered in moss. Thomas Drake, 1958-1987. The wind rose, carrying the scent of rain again. The drifter knelt before the cross and slowly began to fade, the whisper softening like a sigh. Home. Then he was gone. Tom stood there a long time, hat in hand, rain dripping down his face. The next morning, the road was silent again. No more footsteps. No more sightings. But when Tom drove back toward town, his radio crackled once and faintly, through the static. Thank you. Sheriff? And for the first time in 30 years, no one saw the silent drifter on Route 47. At least, not that week. A month passed since Sheriff Tom Granger's encounter at the old Drake farmhouse. For the first time in years, Route 47 was quiet. No sightings. No strange reports. No whispers about the silent drifter. Locals said the ghost had finally found peace. Truckers who used to take the long way around started using the road again. Even the Sleepy Pines Motel had a few new guests, but peace never lasts long on cursed ground. A new driver. It was a foggy Friday night when Ethan Cole, a 22-year-old delivery driver, took the late shift hauling medical supplies from Houston to Chicago. He wasn't from the area and didn't know about the road's reputation. His GPS said Route 47 was the fastest way north, so he followed it, straight into the mist. The deeper he drove, the quieter it got. No cars, no lights, no movement except for the fog swirling in his high beams. The radio signal faded into static and his phone lost service. He tapped the steering wheel nervously. Come on, man. It's just fog. Nothing weird, but then the shape appeared. At first it looked like a man walking on the shoulder, a tall figure in a long dark coat. Ethan slowed, thinking it might be someone who needed help. He rolled down his window. Hey, you okay out there? The man stopped walking. His head turned toward the truck, too slowly. His face caught the headlights, smooth, pale, eyeless. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. What the hell? Before he could finish, the figure vanished into the mist. He floored the gas pedal, hands shaking. Nope, nope, nope. The speedometer climbed. The truck roared down the empty highway. But in the side mirror, the drifter was there again, walking, calm, unhurried. Each step echoed through the cab, even though he was far behind. Ethan looked away, gripping the wheel tighter. When he looked again, the mirror was empty. But something moved in the passenger seat. He turned and saw a wet duffel bag lying there, marked with faded letters, T. Drake, U.S. Army. Ethan screamed. The sheriff returned. Sheriff Granger was half asleep in his office when the phone rang. "Sheriff, you better come quick," said the voice on the other end. "Got a truck overturned on Route 47, driver's alive, but..." He's rambling about someone walking beside the road. Tom's heart sank. He grabbed his jacket and sped out into the night. When he arrived, paramedics were pulling Ethan from the wreckage. The young man was pale, eyes wide in terror. He came out of nowhere. Ethan gasped. "A man with no face, and he was inside my truck." Tom's blood went cold. "Where's the truck now?" The trooper pointed toward the ditch. "Over there, Sheriff. But you'll want to see what's in the passenger seat." Tom climbed down the embankment. The truck was crumpled, windshield shattered. Rain started to fall again, light, cold, relentless. Inside, the passenger seat was soaked. A duffel bag sat upright, perfectly dry despite the rain. Tom stared at the faded letters. T. Drake. The zipper moved. Slowly, a wet hand reached out. Tom stumbled back, pulling his gun, but the cab was empty again. Only the echo of a whisper drifted through the rain. "Take me home." He looked around wildly. The highway was empty, except for the faint outline of a man walking away into the fog. The drifter, still eyeless, still silent. The roads cursed. Tom drove straight to the old Drake farmhouse. The front door hung open. He stepped inside, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The walls seemed colder now, as if the house itself was holding its breath. He called out, "Thomas Drake, you found home once. Why are you back?" No answer, and only the sound of dripping water. He followed it to the hallway. The family photo still hung on the wall, but something had changed. The soldier's face had returned. The woman and child were gone. "God help me," Tom whispered. He heard footsteps behind him. Slow, deliberate. He turned. The drifter stood there, the same black coat, the same featureless face. But this time Tom didn't feel fear. He felt sadness. "What are you looking for?" he asked softly. The whisper filled the house again. "She never made it home." Tom frowned. "Your wife?" "The boy." The figure nodded once, almost human now. His body flickered, showing flashes of the past. A rainy night, a broken car, a mother and son walking down the highway waiting for him. Then headlights, screeching tires, silence. Tom understood. They died too. The drifter's head tilted downward. "Lost, still walking." The air grew colder. The windows rattled. Tom gritted his teeth. "Then go to them, Thomas. You don't have to walk this road anymore." For a long moment the figure stood still. Then slowly he began to fade, his voice barely a whisper now. "Thank you." And just like that, he was gone. The last passenger weeks later, Route 47 reopened officially. The town stopped talking about the ghost. Sheriff Granger retired quietly, and the motel finally closed for good. But one foggy night, a lonely trucker saw a woman and small boy standing by the highway, holding hands, waiting. He slowed down to offer a ride. When his headlights hit them, they smiled faintly. The boy waved, and behind them, half shrouded in mist, walked a man in a long coat, his face whole again, eyes soft, peaceful. As the truck passed, the figures faded one by one, leaving only empty road and falling rain. The radio crackled softly with an old song, "Take the Long Way Home." And for the first time, Route 47 was truly silent, until the next traveler came along, because some roads never forget, and some souls never stop walking.